Hey Tracy, just a reminder, we need to ask the council about the February meeting, which is scheduled for Valentine's.
I just
Uh,
wrote it down.
okay, we held it on Valentine's last year. Um, so there is precedent, but it's up to the council.
Last year we obviously there were no romantics in the in the group. Now that it's, on a Wednesday instead of a Monday, maybe that's different. I don't know. So think about it.
I'm happy to move it because I will be on a plane.
You'll be on a plane. Oh,
Yes.
oh,
You have a
okay.
similar quandary as I do for the March meeting, Darren. So maybe we can move both.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about it at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Is the March meeting ending up being when you guys are off for spring break, or is that something else?
It isn't. It's the week before, or
Okay.
the week and a half before.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, 7 o'clock. Okay, you can let everybody in. Sorry.
Albert, are you ready to roll?
I saw he was recording, so
Okay. He has the local.
okay. Well, it looks like we've got everybody in. So, right. Okay, it's 7:02, so we're gonna call this meeting to order. This is the Kensington Town Council meeting for January 10th. First item of agenda is on the second page. Hold on. Should be the moment of silence. Sorry. Okay. Is there anyone would like to lift up? Okay, not seeing any hands. All right, well, if we can just bow our heads for a moment, we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We had a problem with the November meeting minutes. One of the council members did not receive them, so we just held it off to approve for on this month. So we're going to go ahead and start with the November 8th meeting minutes. If somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll move to approve the November 8th council meeting minutes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ooh, I didn't ask for a
Second.
second, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, and everybody approved. Okay, great. And then we had a special town council meeting on November 20th. If I can get a motion to approve.
I'll keep going. I'll make a motion to approve the special town council meeting from November.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council, I know you received the December meeting minutes. I saw one, Nate had one small edit, and so I think we're ready to go. So if we can get a motion on the closed session for December 13th.
I move that we approve the minutes for the closed session that was held on December 13th, 2023.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then for the public session on December 13th, meeting minutes, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the public session meeting minutes from December 13th, 2023.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right, we'll move down to the mayor and town council. Number one, Anne, do you want to take that one?
Sure. We want to make certain that the public is aware of what occurred here in Kensington just before the holidays. We unfortunately saw that one of our local religious institutions was vandalized, the Star of David sign and Israel sign in front of Temple Emmanuel. And the town issued this statement strongly condemning what happened. You can read the statement that was prepared in the minutes. This was classified as a hate crime, and we would like to underscore and reiterate that we strongly condemn attacks on our local religious institutions, including anti-Semitic attacks that are meant to intimidate and alienate the Jewish members of our community during this time. And we'd like to remind the community of the importance of being alert, being aware, and reporting any incidents of bias or hate crimes to the authorities so that we can stop this behavior before it escalates.
And the letter is also on our town website on the announcements page as well. All right. Thank you, Anne, for pulling that together. And we got quite a few responses from our county council members in support of our the letter that was written. Okay, let's move on down. Number 2, the sign review board variance. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, Equality Builders, which is proposing to lease the property located at 10800 Connecticut Avenue, which was previously Space Savers, has filed a variance with the sign review board with Montgomery County for 3 separate variances. One is for a variance to place a sign on a non-pedestrian entrance on the south side of the property facing Farragut Avenue. The second variance is to place a sign on the east side of the property, non-pedestrian entrance facing Connecticut Avenue. And the third variance is the same area, the east side, for a variance to allow the sign allowance calculation to be greater than 200 square feet. Per the policy of the Montgomery County Sign Review Board, they will not listen to the variance until they have received comment from the town of Kensington. You received a staff memo with regards to the 3 variances, and we've also provided to the council and the public the proposed sign plan for the 3 variances within the public documents.
Not to put Alex on the spot, but is it possible to pull those up, or at least one of them? Do you have the agenda documents?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, I just think it's helpful at least to get maybe the Connecticut Avenue view.
Just to clarify, this is not a variance by the town. We are just providing comment to the sign review board who's actually hearing the variance.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I think the biggest issue was the size, correct?
So this would be the east side of the property facing Connecticut Avenue. There's actually 2 variances for this. One is to place a sign on a non-pedestrian entryway. There's no entrance on this side of the building. And the second variance is to allow the sign allowance calculation to be greater than 200 square feet. Equality Builders is proposing just short of 217 square feet.
Council, anybody have any questions?
Have they expressed a willingness to go down to 200? Have they given any reason for why 217 instead of 200?
They did not provide that information when we spoke to them. I did speak with with Roger Waterstreet with the County Sign Review Board. Staff with the county did have the same concern of why the sign was being proposed at greater than 200 square feet. There was plenty of room on that side of the building to stay within the 200 square feet.
And I believe we did hear from a property owner across the street that was concerned about the size of the sign. I understand why, they want one on Connecticut Avenue just because the entrance is on Farragut. I mean, you don't see the entrance because the entrance not on this side of Farragut. You have the one in the back. Is there a picture of the one in the back where actually you enter the building? Maybe not.
Yeah, it's at the end, I think, all the way at the
Okay.
bottom,
Yeah.
right there.
Does it actually have a sign there? Maybe they're spending all their money on the north side and the east side of the building.
This might be because it's only for the variance requests.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe they're gonna put one there, but it's not listed
It's-
here.
Okay. Okay. I think it's too big. I mean, I don't really have a problem with having it on the Connecticut side and the Farragut side, but I do have a problem with how large it is. That's my personal opinion.
I share
If I
that.
could-
I mean, we've
Yeah,
done this
go
for
ahead.
other properties within the town where the, call it, quote, front of the building is really the rear of the building, but that's what's along the roadway. And we've approved a sign at the rear of the building for location finding. It's just too large.
I mean, I don't think the
I
sign
agree.
needs to take more than 4 windows tops.
I'm in agreement with that, but I'm also, I mean, I agree with the staff recommendation to not be supportive of the Farragut entrance because it's more for advertising and less out of a hardship or necessity to have that second sign, based on the logic that everybody who enters that building has to go by it on Connecticut, because you can't
You can't
cross
turn.
traffic to the south. You have to go up and do a U-turn, or go north and go past it and do a U-turn where you'd see it, and then you'd see it again when you go south after making the U-turn. So I think it's not necessary, and it's really more for advertising purposes.
I agree with that. I mean, I guess they could get away if they did a directional sign. They could do something that wasn't lit, but had, equality builders with an arrow pointing to where you
Arrow,
enter the
yeah.
building. If it was a directional sign, maybe we'd feel differently, but I don't think it would need to be lit just because you're not looking for it at night. Anybody else?
No, I agree with what's been said, and I also didn't see a compelling reason to support a variance beyond the 200 limit that is in the code.
Anybody in the audience have want to make a comment? I can't see them. Oh, there we go. I'm not seeing any hands. So Matt, it sounds like we don't support the variance.
Well, you're supporting one variance. You're supporting the placement
Oh,
of the
allowing it on
east side.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So what we're hearing, what we'll relay to Roger, Water Street, and the Sign Review Board is that we are not in favor of the variance on the south side of the property, placement of the sign. We think that is advertising and not signage. The east sign, we are in favor of the placement of sign, but we are not in favor of the second variance on the east side, which would allow it to be greater than 200 square feet.
So just out of curiosity, would we support a directional sign if it was just smaller and in the ground, maybe not even attached to the building?
So it would count towards their sign allowance calculation.
Okay.
My guess is that they're going to try to maximize the east side sign at 200 square feet. So they would need another variance at another time before the sign review board to put another sign. Directional signs are classified as addresses, arrows, nothing that could be advertising or perceived as.
Okay. So you could put entrance with an arrow. And
Correct,
that would.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to clarify, Are we saying that the entire building is eligible for up to 200 square feet? And so that if, for example, they do have a sign over their customer entrance that's 20 square feet, that would reduce the size of the Connecticut Avenue sign to 180 square feet?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah,
Good.
I know Alex mentioned they have not provided any signage package or any proposal to us for where the customer entrance is located. That's something that Roger and DPS will figure out in the sign allowance calculation if there's any additional signage, but they would need to reduce the sign on the east side. So what we would just tell them is that we do not support anything greater than the sign allowance calculation for the property of 200 square feet.
Well, okay, so let me just propose a little bit of a middle ground there, because I don't really want to have to consider this next month or the month after. I'm happy to go 200 square feet on Connecticut Avenue, because I think, people are driving fast up Connecticut, and I'm more than happy to have them realize they just drove by a quality builder. I'm not sure I need it to count against something over the entrance, because in my view, those, if they didn't build this building. If they did, they probably would have put the customer entrance on Connecticut Avenue instead of on the back side of the store.
I don't know. That's where the parking is, though. Better.
Well, I'm saying if they built it, they might have put the parking up front.
I don't think this is a place where pedestrians, go shopping. I think it's.
I'm just saying if they need something over the doorway,
Yeah, I mean, they have multiple options on the property. I mean, they could put a monument sign much smaller than 200 square feet. I mean, they're just maximizing and at this point requesting something that's greater than what's allowed. Space Savers, who was or is the current tenant, doesn't even have a sign on the east side of the property. And so they just have the address 10800. So
this sign doesn't even have that.
Yeah, Darren, I applaud your working toward a middle ground, but I think it's just going to end up coming back to us. I think my preference would be just a signal that they present a complete sign package to the county that adheres to a maximum of 200 square feet, however they want to put it on the building, that on the west and on the east, but that we don't support the south.
So we would support a variance as to building face, but not as to sign square footage. Is that the gist?
I believe so. We're allowing it on the side that doesn't have the entrance.
On the east, but not the south.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay, good.
Can I just ask one, since we're on the topic of this issue of signage on Connecticut Avenue, was there an update, Matt, from the signboard for the other property, the Holy Cross Health?
The Concord building?
Did they review that?
yeah, so that's actually the John Blick's property over on Concord will be on the agenda on January 17th.
Okay.
My understanding is that I mean, they have our comments. They've accepted them, and I've been told to anticipate that the sign review board will provide them the variance and allow the sign to be placed at 47.5 feet. The original sign is being transferred from Farragut Avenue.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Number 3, the tactical urbanization presentation. I know, Nate, you've got some people from the working group on the call.
We do.
So
we have Pierre Kosgoff and Marla Hollander, and also Alan Simon, co-chairs on in support. But we're going to present, I'm just going to give you a brief kind of overview of where this idea came from and what work has been done over the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, actually. And then turn it over to Marla and Peter to be able to provide a walkthrough of the presentation. It shouldn't be more than about 10 minutes, but this concept of tactical urbanism is one of our 4 work streams of the Pedestrian and Bicycling Access and Safety Working Group. We have about 3 or 4 people who've been involved with this work stream, including those who are here tonight, as well as Earl Houston and John Rogers has been providing some feedback and advice. But basically, this work stream has been doing a lot of research on the topic, and I'll give you a quick preview of what the topic is in a moment. Having presentations within our working group. We've had a couple of discussion sessions. Tracy was at one of them for one of the meetings, and talking to other jurisdictions, doing the research to come up with this presentation. So a lot of work's gone into what will ultimately be recommended. What is tactical urbanism? Simply put, it's a way to marry these concepts of prioritizing pedestrian bicycling safety with our public arts program, community engagement and outreach, exploring different options and experimenting before actually having to commit to a long-term permanent solution. So it's a really cool concept that the recommendations you see in the end, and they'll go into more detail, but the recommendations that you see in the end were informed by the sites were informed by our walkability and bikeability audit. So it's very evidence-based for where we chose to prioritize. And we recognize that some of these that are going to be proposed are more viable than others in terms of just logistics and who we'd have to collaborate and coordinate with and outreach, et cetera. And also in terms of price for the pilots. But I think you hopefully will find this an interesting concept if you didn't know about it before, but it's something that's taking off in a lot of places around the country. And I think we've got a really good case to be made for why we should be doing it here in our town. So with that, I'll turn over to, I forget who's going first, if it's Peter or Marla, but whoever wants to jump in, floor is yours.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Nate. So my name is Peter Kozakov. Woodfield Road in Parkwood, so just outside of Kensington proper. But I've been walking and biking to Kensington since I was 13 and still continue to do it to this day. I viewed this work stream as an opportunity to give back to the community as well as to improve the pedestrian and biking experience for those within the town of Kensington. Marla, want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name's Marla Hollander. I live on Warner Street in the Kensington Estates neighborhood with my family, including 2 teens. My professional hat, I've been a healthy community design professional for the past couple of decades, working with communities across the country, and being able to serve on this work group is my, love of my own community, really wanting to support the pedestrian lifestyle, the dream, one of the reasons we moved to this town. So really excited to be able to support the community in that way. I think you got a snippet of why we're bringing this concept of tactical urbanism, why the work stream and the work group is bringing it to you to share for consideration. Really kind of taking a couple moments to talk about what tactical urbanism is and isn't before we move on to some of the potential things that we can be doing in the town. I want you to think about the images that you saw on the first slide and that you're going to be seeing throughout this presentation, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I'm going to be sharing some words with everyone. But really thinking about tactical urbanism as an approach to neighborhood building. And it's being used across the country, actually across the globe, to really lift up ways to reimagine places, reclaim spaces, improve public safety, foster connection between residents and communities. We're seeing some some work blossoming up in Rockville and Baltimore. DC has a very thriving commitment to public art and a kind of tactical urbanism frame as well. So we would not be the first to foray into this at all. It's a technique that is really using short-term, low-cost, scalable interventions to catalyze long-term change that we start to see, that we've identified in some of the opportunities for pedestrian improvements, for us to test things out, to come up with some more permanent solutions. Three key cornerstones, safety, tactical urbanism, increased visibility of pedestrians, bicycle paths. It alters driver behavior, reduces speed, a lot of the things that we've been talking about in our work group, reclaiming some spaces, bringing life to community through artwork, and fostering community engagement and connection by bringing community into the process, and just creating shared activities. We can move on. There's really some great, strong data behind tactical urbanism and street art. Some recent studies from Bloomberg are showing decreases in driver and pedestrian conflicts, 25%, 27% increases in drivers yielding to pedestrians where there are projects cited, and 50% decreases in car crashes involving pedestrians and cyclists. So really, really strong data supporting this type of work. Next. And when we were exploring different pathways as a work stream, as a work group, we really, saw this natural connection between the incredible public art that we've been commissioning within town, and kind of the vertical exploration of art, with this, more kind of horizontal plane of bringing art to a different level, kind of meeting that the vertical and the horizontal, and continuing to support arts in the community. I'm going to turn it over to Peter to talk just a little bit about the tools, and then just really dive into some potential sites that we've been thinking about.
Great. Thanks, Marla. So I'm going to try and be quick because I know that you guys got this package ahead of time, and I want to be respectful of your time, but please feel free to jump in and stop me if you have any questions. I'm more than willing to engage on those. Tactical urbanism tools, there are four key categories: barriers, which prevent cars from encroaching on the reclaimed spaces; landscape elements, which help enhance and provide something for users to interact with these spaces; signage, which provides information about these reclaimed spaces; and then surface treatment, which enhance the experience and the visibility of the reclaimed spaces. So many of you guys may be thinking, have I ever seen tactical urbanism before? We've shown a few pictures before of tactical urbanism projects, but the reality is that a lot of those streeteries that popped up during COVID, whether in Bethesda, Wheaton, or Silver Spring, those are all examples of tactical urbanism, reclaiming public spaces for a reimagining of community usage. So whether it's the chairs, the picnic tables, or AstroTurf, but shutting down streets or parts of streets so that a community can re-engage and reimagine how they engage with their infrastructure.
Peter, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think that was, obviously that was done to get people outside, because of the pandemic, but there was also there was less traffic, which made it easier to close the streets. Although many have stayed closed. Is that correct?
Some have stayed closed. That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And adding to that, throughout the country, even before COVID, there were efforts to take away parking spaces in lieu of, a cafe corner or such, which were commonly seen during COVID. But we can jump to the next slide. Oh, sorry, we're at the safety objectives. My apologies. Yeah, so safety objectives. Here are the 4 key pillars for increasing safety for pedestrian bicycle experience. So that includes reducing time in active roadways, slowing traffic, increasing visibility, and protection for pedestrian bicyclists. So tactical urbanism employs many tools and methodologies that address these concerns. These are also objectives that we use to evaluate the sites that we selected. For example, reducing time in active roadways by using bump outs to create a shorter crosswalk, slowing traffic with tighter turning radiuses, increasing visibility with reflective tape, and public art on crosswalks. So various strategies to employ to achieve these objectives. The next slide. All right, so some background on our work stream itself. We identified initial sites from the walkability audit for consideration, and then evaluating those to select the 3 finalists that we're briefing you all here today on, based on the ability of various tactical urbanism techniques and methodologies to address some of the shortfalls that were identified in that walkability audit. The key components from this overall work stream is addressing existing safety shortfalls, community engagement and contribution, as well as an opportunity to add art to the community. All right, so jumping into site option 1, and I want to be clear that each of these options is a little bit different. We have a little bit different recommendations, as well as there's different problems being addressed. So it's kind of a diverse range of not only locations throughout town, but also tools and approaches. But site 1 is Calvert Place and Kensington Parkway. You can see that going southbound on Kensington Parkway, making that right turn onto Calvert Place. It's a very wide angle turn. This results in cars going speeding. Looking at the angle itself is very reminiscent of a highway where cars are not intended to slow down. That seems to be what's happening here. So taking upon this opportunity to address this, we've looked at ways to use tactical urbanism public art to slow that down. We are recommending the next slide using a public art installation to change and carve out some of that road and reclaim that. You can take a look at this example, and on the right side of the graphic there, you see the tree and the curb. This was originally a very wide angle turn, and some of that has been carved out with this street art. So it is close to a right angle. You'll notice that it's still very easily traversable for motorists, but requires any drivers making that right turn to make it at a much slower pace. As well as you see the crosswalk itself is now much shorter, so it's a shorter distance for pedestrians and bicyclists to engage in a active roadway. Now, imagining what this looks like at our site, Calvert Place and Armory, we can go to the next slide, and you can see my very talented Microsoft Paint skills. The 2 blue indicators right there would be approximately where we'd recommend placing street art. Obviously, we do have residences along Calvert and Kensington Parkway, so these would need to be spaced appropriately so that residents can access their driveway. I wouldn't foresee any detrimental effects towards these residents, as they still be able to access their driveway. In fact, it would more function as an extended protected driveway than anything else. But you can see that folks coming down Kensington Parkway southbound can still make that right turn onto Calvert Place, but they wouldn't be able to do it at a larger speed. They have to slow down for that. Same thing with Calvert Place going, making the left onto Kensington Parkway. Northbound, still be able to make that, but it's more of a right turn. And you can see our broad overview of this, our estimate materials. Estimate that this would only be about 6 months or so. We'd still want a traffic engineer to do a design review. Community engagement obviously would be with Calvert Place residents along with Washington Street, folks who'd be most likely making that right turn, as well as just the general area of Kensington neighbors.
Hey, Peter. A couple of questions. That was my first question. Has any of this been socialized with the neighbors, specifically that property where the driveway is in the middle of the installation?
No, this is just our scoping meeting right here. We've discussed this internally, the PBAS, the subcommittee.
Yep.
But, yeah, we weren't going to move forward until we got a green light from the council.
And I really appreciate that you've already acknowledged that, traffic engineering study, like having to look at these actual radii. My concern or question, I shouldn't say, because until we, this is Microsoft Paint, and I think you did a wonderful job with it. But where would the flexi post go? I get it that it's an extended kind of protected driveway. It could make honestly getting in and out of that driveway more precarious,
Right.
just depending on how it's designed. That would be. Because so those are my comments. I think that. I think you're probably aware of that, and it'll go through with engineering. But when this gets to more of call it a phase 2, more refined artistic Microsoft Paint skill, I'd be really curious because this, to me, looks almost problematic to get in and out of.
Right. So, obviously we're going to be engaging with the community, but the folks living along the stretch that we would be putting public art, their input is going to be paramount to this. And there's an opportunity to have flex posts in various locations so that they could theoretically cut corners over the public art, still discourage folks from cutting through the public art area, but they could access their driveway. There's various options that we can look at, but yeah, that's something that would get fleshed out with the engineer side. Absolutely. And
I'm sure the engineers will do this anyways, but also for the radii for our town trucks and plows.
Right.
So, thanks.
Yeah, and just to clarify here, this is all just to give you a visual of what we're talking about. This all would invariably be analyzed and looked at, like you're saying, Connor, like Peter's responding to your points. But this is just to give you a visual of the concept.
Yeah. And I think it's great. I remember looking at this with Bloomberg a couple of years ago. I also wonder, same location, and we may have had flexi posts there for a little while, but almost just doing a triangle wedge or pork chop off of the island property and narrowing the road toward the homes on the west side of Calvert. If you get the sense of what I'm saying, Nate.
Yep.
I do. I wonder if that, where it's all one contiguous piece, may be more natural as well as work to help with the problem we already have of illegal U-turns in that location.
Yeah, I mean, it does defeat a little bit the purpose of people speeding down Kensington Parkway and just taking that, that hard right because they can. It's just like a slow, very smooth right. If they're heading south, because they would still be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, all of these, I think in the general scope of what you're saying is fair game. It's just this very specific site that was identified as problematic. Yeah. But it's a really good point. Should we keep going?
Sure. All right.
Okay.
So site 2, Frederick Ave. On the northern side of Frederick Ave, there is a sidewalk that ends abruptly at the first exit or the first entrance to the Kensington House Apartments. This is a considerable problem when you realize that is the Frederick Ave local park just between that apartment building and Wake Drive, with multiple families, children having to walk in the street in order to get to that, or using the southern sidewalk on Frederick Ave and then crossing without a crosswalk. So opportunity here is to increase pedestrian visibility and safety across a frequently traveled route. Going to the next slide, we can see a recommendation here is to use planters and other hard barriers, create a safe walk and cycle route for users to connect to that park, and increase awareness as well as increase public art in Kensington and the town's greenery. The streetscape. Again, we have Microsoft Paint started the show here. Obviously not to scale, but these green boxes are about what we'd imagine doing with the planters, just taking off a little bit of the shoulder so that there is a more protected path for folks to go down. Now, you may notice that it stops right at that parking lot for the local park. There's opportunity to explore taking that down all the way to Wake Drive. Still something that's discussion. We also had a crosswalk connecting the sidewalk on the southern side of Frederick Ave, northern side. Well, also suggesting a bike rack at local parking lot. But the duration of this installment is a bit longer than the previous one, 6 months, which is 12. That being because the end of this route is at a playground park. We would like to see the community's engagement that gets through a more warmer months, just to get a general idea of what that interaction would be like. And similarly with the previous, and actually for all three of our site options, we would like a traffic engineer to review as well. Engagement here would be heavily focused on folks living in the apartment buildings, as well as those along the Frederick Avenue corridor, both north and south.
Can I get clarity on the planters? Would they be next to the curb, or you're creating a sidewalk in the street?
That's correct, in the street.
Okay, you don't think, I mean, I've seen way too many stop signs, lamp posts, things that are not actually in the street being knocked down by cars. You don't think that the planters would just be, something that could be hit and cause injury to somebody who may be in the street as they're walking by? I have some concerns about the
That's a concern of mine.
type of.
Yeah, I tend to not recommend dust flex posts. They don't provide any, other than a little bit of visibility, they don't provide any hard safety. So
Yeah.
the planters that we're looking at would be filled with nearly 1,000 pounds of soil, something like that. So that would be a significant barrier and impediment to any motorist or vehicle that would drift into these lanes. Would likely use reflective tape to try and increase visibility as well. I totally understand the concern there, but with the engineering design review, that we can determine whether or not this would be suitable before going forward. So this would take further analysis before actually implementing. But no, I would not recommend anything that I wouldn't think was safe, as well as without a more sturdy barrier. And we could obviously be opening to pivoting, from planters to concrete barriers as well.
Jersey barrier.
Yes, and those could easily be painted too. So adding to the art installation. So
Yeah, I mean, I'd almost rather see that as a Jersey barriers that have paint on them. I think that would be kind of cool.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So last site option, kind of infamous, is the Knowles and Dietrich section. I don't need to explain this too much, but there's been a lot of development at these already popular shopping centers in the past few years. We have, I believe, the apartment building coming in the northwest quadrant over there, as well as a few playgrounds just a few blocks from this intersection. There's a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic that tries to cross here across Knowles, as well as across Dietrich. And you only see one crosswalk here. Also looking at the northeast corner, you can see on Dietrich coming from Knowles going westbound to Dietrich North. That's an incredibly wide angle turn, so much that from the satellite you can see how the road itself is degraded with the speed and the weight of all those cars. So the opportunity here is to increase pedestrian visibility and safety across very frequently traveled routes. We go to the next slide, see what this would look like. We're proposing using bump outs and crosswalks with urban art to create a environment that pressures drivers to drive slower, as well as increasing awareness of users of these intersections that are either walking or so through more narrower roadways or road diet. Drivers are then pressured to drive slower, as well as the sharper turning radiuses for them to drive slower and be more aware of their surroundings. And imagining what this would look like on the next slide, we have one more Microsoft Paint rendering, and you see the giant car on Dietrich Avenue, still very much accessible and traversable by motorists, but you have a much, much shorter way for pedestrians to go in an active roadway. We're using bump outs on all the corners. There's, again, an option to add, you see that there's only 2 additional crosswalks. There's an option to add a third one on the eastern side of Knowles. That's going to be to be considered as well. Before anyone asks, yes, absolutely, Knowles is a state road. We're going to need SHA coordination before anything really gets done here. So I understand that the possibility of this actually getting enacted and going forward is still a little bit up in the air. I know that the state is looking at doing something here. That being said, tactical urbanism is about reimagining a way a community interacts with their infrastructure, and by enacting cheap and short-term solutions. So whether or not the state's doing something in near term, this could certainly be a near-term solution that provides a safer alternative to what already exists for its bike and pedestrian users, as well as how the community ends up interacting with this installation could help inform more long-term permanent solutions that would then be either employed by the state or collaborate with the state. So, and our engagement here would obviously include not just the neighborhoods, but also the businesses at the shopping centers. All right, next steps. So I'd like to obviously respond to any action items, addressing the questions so far. At this point, if there are any additional questions or anything we can't answer, we will certainly do that. But assuming that any of these projects get green lit, that would then lead us to project plan development. And ultimately, at the end of those, evaluation and removal. As I mentioned, that tactical urbanism is about a short-term, cheap, and scalable, but temporary way of reimagining and how a community interacts with their infrastructure to inform and imagine more long-term, permanent, safer solutions. So the evaluations can help determine recommendations for more long-term implementations or either future projects elsewhere. So with that,
yeah. So thanks, Peter, and thanks, Marla. We really like to hear your reactions and questions. But just to be very clear, the request tonight is to seek your approval for budgeting for this for next fiscal year to pilot some or all of these. So just so you know what the ask is. I don't think we were very clear about that yet.
Well, I've got multiple questions, but council, do you all have any questions?
I have a opening question just on whether within the three options you have ranked them in terms of feasibility. I'm assuming that the Dietrich one, because it involves the state highways, is on the lower end, but would be curious to hear you all address that.
We have not at this point. Dietrich, obviously, it would be. Between the other two options, the Calvert and Kensington Parkway or the Frederick Ave, we haven't evaluated those at this point.
Sure.
I have a couple comments. I love the idea, the concept of combining art and pedestrian safety. I also know that art can be, political or socially active. And I would not want to see our streets used for a Black Lives Matter plaza. I wouldn't want to see it used for, Zionism or even a Republican elephant. Not an American flag. I mean, I just don't want to see it be political. And I want to know sort of how do we keep it at a non subversive or political aspect of art, knowing how much art can waft over into subversive.
It's a really good point. If I could just say, this concept in the working group started off in a very broad sense of the term of what tactical urbanism is, and even discussions around like what was it called? Guerrilla. What was it, Marla? Guerrilla
urbanism. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that we are presenting the most, I think the most structured type of activity where we would have a lot of say in which artists get selected, what the design is. And I fully agree that we would want this very controlled. And I think that is definitely the intention. I think that's how DC does their program and so on. But it's a really good point and good to raise it. but it would be something that I think we would have to be approving of whatever gets designed as a council.
And then the other kind of question or comment, I guess, is, I noticed each of the proposals considered a traffic engineer review. And I can understand how a traffic engineer can evaluate, planters full of dirt versus the flex posts. But I don't know how they would evaluate, art painted on the ground. And so I just don't want to, go forward supporting it, thinking there would be a wise eye, a trained eye looking at this when there might be no criteria for a traffic engineer to use to evaluate.
Yeah, and I can say there's guidance documents related to the art piece that come into play as well. You want to make sure that you're using art that's not too distracting to drivers. And so learning, that's part of the exploration, learning more about what those components are is going to be very important, because our first and foremost consideration is safety, which is why we would be doing this in the first place, is we want to improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. So we're going to be paying very close attention to figuring out how to make sure any of the art pieces would not detract from that.
Marla, I'm glad you brought that up, because some of the pictures were like, whoa, there's a lot going on there. It did look very distracting. So that was one of my notes. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm sorry, Darren.
Yeah, and there is a whole guide that says this is the kind of art that works. This kind of art doesn't, right? So
okay. One of my questions was, we're a little town. I know a lot of this urbanization is, I don't want to call it a quick fix, but it's a way of fixing a problem short term, maybe to see if it works or whatever, because these are supposedly temporary. In a town our size, why don't we just have a traffic engineer look at it and then we just fix it? Why are we going through this step?
I can answer that. So we took the culvert concept to Matt in a discussion when we had the walkability audit, and the reaction, if I can summarize, Matt, maybe just come in here if I'm mischaracterizing this, is that there would be a lot of pushback from residents on something like that, because for various reasons. I think we had said maybe a sidewalk there or something more permanent, and I believe that this is a good step for areas that we don't know truly what the reaction will be like fully to something. I think it gives people more comfort to be able to see it, to visualize it, to feel it, to experience it before making a long-term commitment to something that may, that may not be fully understandable until it's there, right? So I think that's the spirit of it, and we would want to design them, I believe, and I think this is how most of them are done. I mean, we had timelines on there for 6 months or the 6 to 12 months for the installation, but I think we'd want to design them for the possibility of keeping them permanent if it's so decided. But it's really is about piloting and testing it and feeling it out before making a permanent decision.
Okay,
is that right, Matt? I mean, I don't know if I characterized our conversation accurately, but it's just...
I don't want to get off topic. So I guess what we discussed about with at least at Calvert and Kensington Parkway was extending the sidewalk from Kent Street. And the issue that we're going to run into there is mostly with right-of-way. We don't have the right-of-way to do it. We don't get a lot of feedback about this intersection, at least not recently. In the past, historically, we've received a lot of community feedback, mostly pertaining to illegal U-turns, which we seem to have resolved with the signage. We previously had issues with speed, so we have installed speed humps on this portion of Calvert, and we've cleaned up the stop sign a little bit further once you reach Washington Street. So I mean, I guess my only comment would be staff wise on these is I think they need vetted before we move forward. I mean, that would be my only
Yeah.
position. I mean, I'm just looking at this. I know we're doing paint and everything. There's some traffic movements in there that cannot happen, at least with the culvert. You know, I'm looking at that and saying, why don't we just pull the curb out, communicate with the 3 or 4 residents there, pull the curb out, increase the green space, and potentially be able to plant some trees. That would be just what we've done more recently in the town.
Yeah, over on
I'm not
St.
gonna,
Paul Street, we did that.
yeah, I'm not gonna discuss Knowles because we all know the issues with state highway administration. But at least with the Frederick Avenue one, I had mentioned the Tracy and I've mentioned the Connor. You know, we have more than enough right away for that location. This is not something that has come to staff before. You know, my preference would be to extend the sidewalk to Wake. It wouldn't cost that much more than what the proposal was in the diagram. I would just like to vet this a little more, maybe talk with the working group, kind of figure out some solutions, and kind of go from there.
Well, and I don't know whether you want to get Mobility and Traffic Committee, run it by them.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my preference is to kind of push that back down to the MTC to vet it a little more, and then we can bring in Joe. Joe's our traffic engineer to kind of figure out more long-term solutions. This is a council decision. Obviously, staff likes to solve problems. Long-term, um, I'm always concerned about short-term things. We run into a Farragut Avenue where we have flex posts for years, when there was a very simple fix that didn't cost that much money to the town. So.
So I wouldn't, since we're not in budget season yet, and since the primary ask tonight seems to be general support for this concept, as long as it's not tied to specific locations, I wouldn't mind supporting the concept of having, we already have like an art budget that we use for murals. I would not mind adding this concept to it so that it's probably already eligible for it, but adding it as something that we can consider. But Matt, I tend to agree with, and what both you and Tracy have said. If there's a problem, let's fix it. Let's not try to do a cheap solution that uses paint to solve it. But there might be opportunities in town where this concept would be attractive.
I love the idea of the crosswalks of adding the art between the white blocks. I think that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment, is I've seen it in the Bloomberg program. I mean, my first is I applaud you guys because what you're doing is bringing attention to pedestrian and bicycle safety. And, looking at the 3 options you brought forward, the first thing, to Matt's point, is the Farragut one, I would not be supportive of, because I think we just need to extend the actual permanent sidewalk. I think what you guys have helped to demonstrate is, instead of just doing something in the roadway, I was just looking at the GIS map for the county.
Just for clarity, Connor, you said
sorry, for Frederick. Yeah, I'm a north sider. On Frederick, leading to that park and all the way out to Wake, I think it makes just logical sense to go in and put a permanent sidewalk. And I think it goes to the whole idea that the county has a park there, but they haven't provided a safe way for people to get to the park. And so we can help address that. I'm with Darren. I really am very favorable of just putting together a line item when budget season comes for this. I don't know that, these 3 may not be my top issues, but I do think the crosswalks are ones to bring a lot more visibility to some very specific high pedestrian areas. I'm thinking about the one that goes from, across Howard from M&T to the farmers market. I know it's raised but we can use the art there to really help visually identify for people that this is a large pedestrian, intensive area. And so
I think that one has the bricks, but
it does. But at some point, those are going to get damaged, right?
Yeah.
And it may be that this might be another way to add art, but art that has a way to bring people's attention that helps to slow them down, along with Darren's sign. But at this point, yeah, I'm very supportive of putting money in the budget. I do think each of these three areas could use some re-examining, but I think the biggest thing it's highlighted is there's some things that we can just go and fix, and you've pointed that out. So let's make a plan to try and address those.
Yeah, I think maybe if we want to try art within an existing sidewalk, which I think would be, I mean, this is council decision, a very good start for us. The intersection of Metropolitan and St. Paul. We have it's a four-way, it's an all-way stop. There are continental crosswalks at all legs, so there's four legs you're dealing with. It's not bricked in. Although it's a state road, I think they would be supportive because we're not really changing anything. There's no structural change there. What we would be doing is enhancing an existing sidewalk. And I think that would be a really good trial. It's not a residential area, it's commercial. So you might not have the pushback from residents as you would maybe, somewhere else in the location of the town. But that might be a really good opportunity to try this out, very soon, as opposed to 6 or 12 months out from now. So
I like Matt's idea, and I have another option to put on the table, building off of Connor's comments for the team to look at. The stop signs where Montgomery and Howard all come together in front of the dental building. I've been asked before if there's a way that we could sort of alert cars to slow down as they enter, as you said, pedestrian intensive area, particularly on Saturdays, farmers market. I see routinely that drivers run that stop sign. And it is one of our most heavily traversed pedestrian intersections. And it feels like it has a bit of that gateway feel into Antique Row, and it might lend itself well to better marked crosswalks and art and that space. But overall, I also want to just say that I'm really grateful to the team for exploring this, bringing it to our attention, also sharing the data, which was very compelling. And for all the reasons you've stated, it seems like a good fit for our town. So I would also support putting space for this concept development in our budget for next year.
Any other comments from the council? Are there any comments from the people in the audience?
I know Tom Brault raised his hand in the chat.
Oh, I don't see Tom on my thing. I see the T.
There's a mess.
Oh, there he is. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Just a quick thank you to everybody. I was unaware that this committee was out there and doing it, and just wanted to thank everybody involved in tonight's hearing. This is quite lovely. It's quite wonderful. And I hope some things get done. Kensington is so cool. It's got such a great sense of style and the old, French Quarter, or the history of it. And I think I just wanted to voice my support. I hope the council will put a little money to what gets done. And I, obviously have an affected property. It has no bearing on that. We're here to help. I can think of 5 other locations where this could be really cool and helpful. And I just want to underscore the temporary nature of it. Often we get bogged down in engineering and don't lose sight of being able to take any action in a month versus something never getting done for 3 months. So I wanted to work 10 years, which often happens in right-of-way battles, and wanted to echo and support Matt on his comments. So anyway, I just think it's really, really lovely, and I hope it gets done.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I really think that the consultation with the neighbors of all of these projects would be really a wise thing to do as an early next step. I think there'd be some surprises that people might have about the ideas or the designs or the potential plans there. And also, I just want to call attention to the Frederick Avenue location. That is pretty much all uphill to the stop sign at Wake, and that left turn, that prohibition on the left turns at time of day prohibitions at Wake, that prohibition is routinely ignored both morning and evening. And so if there's a way that we could structure things so that no left turn prohibition is more respected, that might be a good addition to these tentative plans. But I think consultation with the neighbors is really, really essential.
Thank you, Joe. I agree with you on definitely the consultation with the neighbors. Even a pilot program can freak people out sometimes. So I've lived here long enough to know that can happen. So that's very, very important to bring them into the conversation before anything is done. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, sounds like what I'm hearing from the council is that while we're not necessarily going to pick something tonight, would look to be adding more funding into the community arts program that would also include something like this. And but I think the main thing would maybe to get some more input from residents, input from maybe our traffic engineer, and get some ideas to see what is feasible, before we, go too far into letting people know that we plan to do this. And so I think that's something, Matt, do you want to, when would you want to bring like Joe into something like this, Joe Kutro?
From the beginning.
Okay, good idea.
Yeah, I mean, what we can do is just plan to add some, does anyone know from the working group what, just doing basic art within an existing crosswalk, if there's estimates for an artist for that? Are we looking at $5,000 or
I would suspect it's something like
crosswalk?
that. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, for an entire intersection, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody who was part of the presentation in the work stream, I think for doing an entire intersection, in DC, it's $15,000 to $20,000 for the whole intersection. Doing one crosswalk, I would imagine it's probably akin to the cost of option one, where you're adding public art on Calvert, which was about $5,000 to $7,000, I think. And there may be economies of scale if we do a couple at a time. I don't know. But does that sound about right, Peter and Marla?
Yeah, I think there's also the option, there's bringing in an artist, right? And then if we want to broaden it out to a bigger community engagement like SSL hours, or, bringing students in to have them do some of the labor of the paint under the artist, that's another way to possibly reduce time of the artist and cost as well.
And not only reducing costs, but also increasing buying of the community if they're able to contribute to the artistic design and the painting of, whether it be, on the street, or whether we do the Jersey barriers and the community gets to paint a few of those. So it's another option.
Do you guys happen to know, I know that traffic engineers, their Bible is this manual on uniform traffic control measures, I think. And so that's what they're going to look at when we're proposing to take two white bars that were a crosswalk and add Paisley artwork to the middle of it. Do you know if it says anything about that, or if DOT has issued any sort of guidance that says, oh yeah, go ahead and do that?
Not off the top of my head. It's something we can check on.
Yep.
That's the first thing we'll hear back from Joe Kutro on. I'm all for doing it. I just want to do it in a way that doesn't sort of deviate from.
Yeah. And we can take a look at DC has a very robust art program, and John is on our work group. So we can take a look and see what guidance they specifically have for crosswalks, as an example.
That's great.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was gonna make the point that I think there's a need to marry both of these ideas here between needing traffic analysis and engineering. To Tom's point around some things we can just probably move forward with. Others have done it, larger jurisdictions. DC's doing it all the time, and they have a design guide, and that's what Marla is referring to, where John Rogers, who's on our working group, I believe he runs this program in DC. So we have a resource where we can do that, and they work with traffic engineers, and there's definitely involvement, but I believe there's a way that we can kind of bridge both of those goals and doing something that's temporary and quick with also doing it in a sound way from an engineering perspective. So I was going to say,
Go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I really appreciate, because I think I wanted to conclude by saying I really appreciate all the feedback. I think it's been excellent to hear the views of the council and you, Mayor Furman, and the public. Absolutely, this is not just meant to be consultative show. It's meant to be participatory and engaging the public and really community building. So it's not just about making sure, this house or that house or this street's okay with what's being proposed. It's about co-design of a concept, an idea. So that might add a little bit of time to the process, but I would hate that the process is slowed down only because we need to do a detailed engineering design and we're not comfortable because we're not, this doesn't fall in the source book that Joe would typically use. But overall, the goal was to educate you all about the concept, say that we think it has potential, and hopefully get some agreement to budget for it, which I think is what's being agreed upon. And absolutely, some of these decisions are not going, or some of the options likely won't go forward. You've all made really good points, but the ideas are there. And I think great if we can put forward some of the hard solutions or some of the permanent solutions on some of the options that we even presented tonight. But in the future, this is a good option in our back pocket if we're getting mixed feedback and not sure whether something to move forward with more permanently or not. So it's always good to have as an option, in addition to moving forward really quickly with some of the crosswalks that we just discussed, like the St. Paul one or the Metropolitan Avenue one. So again, thanks, great feedback. We really appreciate it, and we'll I guess we'll work with Matt and you all to think about how to move forward with some of this in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with the crosswalks for sure. I think where Joe would come in would be how far out would you bring the artwork, like at Calvert and that sort of thing. Does it need to be 10 feet or 5 feet or, what is the safety radius and all that sort of thing. But I definitely think crosswalks are something that we could do. And, even if Joe may not like them, I think that's not something but we don't listen to him about speed humps either, regarding where we put them. So we've definitely not always gone by the book on those, just the height. If a street needs another speed hump, we'll give them a speed hump. So I think that's but I think there's good opportunities here. And I think just by, adding some funding into that community art budget, as well as, looking at starting something small and then maybe building from there. Great. All right. Well, thank you all. Appreciate you coming out this evening.
Nate, if I can make one last plug on the north side, as the development of the Huggins property goes forward, that Concord Pliers Mill Metropolitan mixing bowl would be another place where we've got a lot of crosswalks and pedestrian movements, that this could be a really visible way to help try and tame that intersection.
Well noted. We will raise that point to SHA when we meet with them next. I like that. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you all. All right.
Yeah,
We're
thanks,
gonna
everyone.
move along.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go through the committee reports. I mean, not, excuse me, not the committee reports, the council reports. So, Connor, you want to start?
I was going to say I don't have much, although we do have an opportunity that was supposed to be yesterday, but due to the weather, the Historic Preservation Committee is doing a learning event. They've done it the last couple of years. Town resident Helen Wilkes will moderate and be talking with the county director for historic preservation, Rebecca Ballo, and some of her staff on historic area work permits, the process, what's eligible, how do you get tax credits, what is that process all like? I will say personally, I had attended my first one prior to doing work on our home, which qualifies as historic, and it was really, really informative. It really kind of demystified the process. It also allows you to meet the people who will actually review your historic area work permits if you live in a historic home, either in Montgomery County or a Town of Kensington designated historic property. And so that is, I'm looking at, I believe the 23rd is the new date.
That's the new date. And
Yep.
Connor, I am going to correct you because it's not necessarily a historic home. If you are in the historic district, you have to follow the rules of permitting, as well as you can get the tax credits. You do not have to be a historic home. You just have to be in the historic district. And of course, they will treat you a little bit differently. If you're a mid-century modern home, you can do things that maybe Connor can't do, but you will still be able to get the tax credits.
That was going to be yesterday, and now it is the 23rd, and it's at Kensington Town Hall in person. They are going to have a link for virtual. It's been out on the town's listserv for several days. Matt, do you know if it's up on our town website?
It is.
Perfect. So refreshments at 6:30 p.m. and the panel discussion will begin at 7 p.m.
Yeah, and it should be on
That's
the
all.
lower level in the classroom.
Perfect. That's all I have.
Great. Okay. Anne, you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. I wanted to share, and Nate, I'm going to invite you to join me in this council update, that Nate and I and Advancing Sustainable Kensington work have been in conversation with Kate Stewart's staff, Paul Ellis. One of the issues that we've been discussing with him are the concerns about the potential budget cuts to WMATA and transportation and how those could impact Kensington area. So the L8 bus that runs north to south was, I believe, slated for elimination or drastic reduction. There will be impacts for ride-on buses that also serve our constituents. And we'd like to explore putting together a letter to support the budget needs to keep transportation service to the Kensington area. But then that also raised up the idea that we'd had earlier of putting in a letter sort of proactively to the county about the town's budget priorities as the county is formulating its budget. And so this seems like a good opportunity for us to proactively start to put together our thoughts, and that's something we like to collaborate on. Nate, you want to add to that?
No, just I'm not sure if in my time on council, I don't recall us doing this formally and sending a letter to the county exec and or the county council. We've always just kind of done it, I think, word of mouth and talking with the officials. Would there be value in sending a letter where we want to make sure that things do not get cut or are prioritized, such as what Anne was mentioning with some of the potential transportation cuts, but then also things around like the Noise Library funding, Summit Avenue extension, and others. And I think Anne and I don't want to volunteer her for this with me, but I think we'd be willing to help draft that letter if it helps.
That's right. We would. I would.
You guys okay with this? Or
I mean, we can pull together a draft to share. I know, I believe the county executive usually introduces the budget in March, so it's under development now. So it seems like a good time to prepare a letter to that effect.
okay. All right. Sounds like the council will support the letter. So just send the draft out and we'll be good.
Would we want the letter to proactively raise support for Summit Avenue extension, or wait until we see what the budget says about that?
Well, my opinion is it's better to be on offense than defense, because it feels like we're always trying to get it back in.
Okay. I mean, to the extent we present it, which we've done, as not simply a road infrastructure, but a opportunity for revitalization and housing in that quadrant, I think that it would be good to include it.
Nate, when will we have the final TAP report? When will we have?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably have it. I mean, we should have had it before the end of the year, right? But I think that we'll have it before we would send that letter. We could put a link to it and say, this is what we're thinking too, or this is, we have evolved, or we're continuing to advance on how we conceptualize this project.
I think that would be a good idea to include that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would be highly supportive. I mean, as soon as we have the TAP report, Nate, to your comment, I would very much like to go on the offensive of reaching out to as many, but the strategic 6 or so council members about what Summit Avenue really is and how we've worked with ULI to conceptualize something that is not a roads project. It is the future of any sort of economic and real property redevelopment in that northwest part of our town. It creates parks, it creates connectivity, it will create additional housing, it will create the opportunity for additional jobs that the experts have told us cannot and will not happen unless Summit Avenue is built, because of how the road designs work currently. That it's just, these properties they won't get unlocked unless there's a way to get to them from north, south, east, and west.
And maybe we'd be so bold to ask them to advance the project.
I mean, I have no problem being bold.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Well, I think we can include that in the context of the broader priorities letter, right, Ann? Or I don't know if you think it should be 2 different letters. Okay.
Anything else? Okay, Darren?
I'll just be brief because I sound a little bit like a broken record. We are still trying. We were going to have a traffic committee meeting, traffic mobility traffic committee meeting in January, but we're pushing it to February so we can make sure that we got input on a couple of projects that we're going to consider.
Okay, great. Connor?
I went first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think I'm the last one.
Nate, sorry. I got confused with going with Nate and Ann at the same time.
No, it's all right. Just 2 very quick, well, one update and one request. The PBAS working group is going to meet on January 16th for our next meeting. And then the Sustainable Kensington is meeting on the 22nd of January. So in reflecting on the other point is reflecting on the last meeting, I was thinking, we had a request from a resident, Joe, to move the public appearances up in the agenda. And I think we should give it a try. I don't know why we wouldn't just pilot it, speaking of pilots, for February and just move it above the resolutions, ordinances, and regulations. Just suggesting that we give it a try, since it was a specific request from a resident.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Not for me. No, I'm done.
Okay. I've just got a couple of things. I just want to remind the council that the journal deadline is on Friday. If you need Monday, I'm sure we could stretch that. This will be a late January, February issue. So if you've got things going on, please, get that to Carrie Ann by Friday or Monday. Also, I got the go-ahead from Neil Burka to announce that Moby Dick Kebabs has signed a lease at the Kensington Shopping Center in the old Tumbleweed. Does not take over the cleaners, just the Tumbleweed, where Tumbleweed was. This will take a while. They're going to have to build out a kitchen. So, and we're working with them on a grease trap in the back, an MOU, because part of it may be in a right of way, but which is used as a parking space. So we're working on that right now with them, or will be shortly. Okay. Also, speaking of Tumbleweed, I just want to announce that if you hadn't heard that Amy Johnson, the Tumbleweed owner who moved down to West Howard, she is completely closing her business, which is very sad. Amy was also the president of the Kensington Ken Business Association. So we are going to miss Amy very much. She was a very active member of our business community, and I know she's helped out at multiple events, and so she will be missed. She's not going anywhere, but I mean, she'll be in, she lives in Rockville, so, but she was a very active member of our business community, and I hope if you get a chance, this is her last weekend, she'll be down at her warehouse getting that cleared out, and she's graciously providing us with some Town of Kensington items that we can use for our welcome basket for new residents. So very grateful for her for making that donation. Also, I want to remind the council that January 18th is the chapter meeting with Chief Jones, Marcus Jones. If you're available, it is by Zoom, and I believe the meeting starts at 6 o'clock. So if you can make that. Let's see. Oh, and lastly, I just want to thank the Kensington Historical Society. If you haven't received a calendar, they did a beautiful job this year with the calendar. It's full color all the way through, and they most of the pictures were provided by the town from a professional photographer who came through the town about 2 years ago, and it really is one that is a keeper. It's really quite. I actually bought 2 extra ones just into my kids who grew up in the town and haven't been here for a visit in a while, so they could see how pretty the town looks. So I'm really excited about it. So anyway, hopefully they'll keep full color going forward, because it really makes a difference when you have it up on your wall. We do need to discuss the February meeting, but we'll do that after public appearances. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The town received a request from Montgomery Parks with regards to Kensington Cabin Park. They are looking to relocate the main access point into the park from just south of the park, so the 10,000 block of Kensington Parkway. There is a mid-block crosswalk there that then goes over a bridge that goes over the creek. They're having some flooding issues down there, and they'd like to remove that access point. And in coordination with our bridge repair project, they have requested our engineer to design a plan to move the access point to the intersection of Kensington Parkway and Frederick Avenue. So we have passed that over to the engineer, Brutus and Associates, to put together a proposal and a design concept for Montgomery Parks to review. And I also just wanted to provide a quick update to the council on the bridge repair project. The project manager that was assigned to us from Brutus took a position with another company. So we lost our project manager. So we are behind schedule. We have a new project manager. I met with him today. So we're about 2 to 3 months behind schedule on that. And then, whatever it takes for the proposed bridge access point relocation. But we're hoping to get an RFP out for construction now, late spring, as opposed to right about now. So there's any questions.
Yeah. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
The proposed relocation of this pedestrian bridge,
Mhm.
would it be at the south part of the intersection with Frederick or the north?
It would be on the
Part of
north
the-
end. It would be on the north
Yep.
end of the intersection. It would actually be a little slightly further up than the north side. Parks is looking to do some, they're having some flooding on the baseline there. So they're looking to put in some kind of culvert to get the water. And then it looks like, at least on the concept plan that they provided us, that they want to move the bridge to that location. We would probably have to extend into the road a little bit to create a green space to get the grade for ADA compliance into the park. Like I said, they've only sent us a very basic concept plan right now. We've sent it over to Brutus to take a look at. There's some questions on Brutus's end. They'll be reaching out to Montgomery Parks to clarify those questions. But it looks like it is feasible. We just need to figure out a little bit of grading. And it would just bring the main access point into Kensington Cabin Park further in up north on the street into the town, and would create a safer crossing area because it would be at a controlled stop as opposed to a mid-block cross. So,
And then my last question, which I know so the county acknowledges they're having flooding problems, but they don't want to discuss the possibility of some sort of underwater bioretention system at that park.
correct. So, our hydro engineer with Brutus, he is reviewing their proposal with regards to what Parks has asked with regards to the flap gate. We are working on that study. The resolution this evening, which is the second part, which is the surveying of the storm drains, is a part of that. So once we have that survey done of the storm drains, Arun and the team over at Brutus will be able to put together the final plan, make recommendations. As the council knows, there is some pushback from Parks to put together either a stormwater pond or a containment system or anything that would disrupt the existing park area. Our hydro engineer is working on a plan. I anticipate that he'll be pushing back on that. And it might involve some political muscle later down the road, but we're not there right now. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Matt, so thanks for the update. That's actually one of the intersections that we have identified as troublesome in the walkability audit. So maybe that's an opportunity for one of these tactical urbanism crosswalks also when it gets redesigned, just to flag that. And thanks for the update too on the stormwater, and for Connor for raising that question. I'm glad that our hydro engineer will push back on that.
Yeah, we're not, there's some concerns on our end as the council knows that we've kind of relayed. Brutus is going to put together the recommendations, and I do anticipate that we push back on what Parks is limiting us from potential resolutions to the flooding problems. So,
And I know I'm being a broken record, and I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but between private donations and park funds, they just did a multi-million-dollar restoration to the cabin. They have the surface basketball court there. Like, the flooding that would occur in a major storm event are putting both of those facilities at risk, which could be mitigated by, what we've suggested to them, that they have this huge field that some sort of bioretention could, help to prevent a flood event from destroying those two park assets.
yeah, and what is being proposed on the parks, then we are very concerned that is actually going to cause a secondary problem where it might solve, the flat gate issue. We are concerned that the 10,000 block of Kensington Parkway will experience flooding where they haven't previously. We already know that a couple of those properties are in the county floodplain. We have a long way to go with this. Each survey, each assessment is part of the puzzle. And we'll get there to get some resolve. So, yeah.
Any other questions from the council on that topic? Okay. Anybody in the audience have a question about number or A in Matt's update? Okay, Joe?
Yes, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, moving that crosswalk on Kensington Parkway to the north a little bit has been discussed by council in years past. This may be 3 to 5 years. And I think it was found not to be a feasible solution to move it up towards toward the intersection with Frederick Avenue. And Matt, I think you were assistant town manager at the time, but I do recall that there was some discussion that the county wanted that moved, that crosswalk moved, and it was found not to be feasible. With that in mind, then why would it be feasible now to move it somewhat to the north toward that intersection?
Joe, you're right. So the town's position was always to move the crosswalk. We were opposed to the mid-block crossing. We wanted to move it many years ago up to the north leg of the intersection. We received some resistance from Parks at the time. There were issues with regarding the grading. I'm not sure what's changed other than they've experienced flooding where they don't want it. They've identified that moving the bridge and the location of the access point to the north would be beneficial to them. I mean, all I can tell you is that, they proposed the idea. I'm in favor of it. And it's something that I think is very feasible, at least on the basic concept plan they've sent us. So I'm happy with the direction we're heading with this.
I'm just wondering if it was a no-go 5 years ago, why would it be suddenly a go now if the location is essentially the same?
Parks accepting the location and the grading issues.
Well, that and change of leadership and people that
Yeah.
are just in those positions.
I think there was a problem with grading too, and where they wanted to move this crosswalk was closer to one of the bridges, and to cross Kensington Parkway and then go down into the park was just a fairly steep walk there. And if I remember correctly, it founded on those kinds of issues. It just was not terribly accessible, and it was complicated by the bridges down there. There's 3 of them, I think, roughly in the same area. So, Matt, did I hear you say a reference to one of the bridges, or as I say, I think there are 3 down there that would.
There's 3 bridges that are. Yeah, there's 3 bridges under the RFP that Brutus is working on for the repairs. There's the Kensington Cabin Park Bridge, which is located at Kensington Parkway and Frederick Avenue. There's the Kent Street Bridge, which is located between 2 Kensington Parkways, Kensington Parkway and the Kensington Parkway Access Road. And then there's a culvert bridge, which is located on Frederick Avenue, just west of Kensington House. So those are the 3 bridges that they're working on to put together the repair project. And like I said, we hope to have that RFP out late spring at this point. And then we'll have a construction contract, and we'll move forward with the repairs, which for the most part are just related to safety, railings, increasing the height of the parapet, bringing it up to code, changing the railings out. There's some structural deficiencies. There's no structural issues with the one bridge at Kensington Cabin Park. But that's the only thing that's directly related to structural. Everything else is just bringing up the code with regards to parapets for the most part and railings. So there's safety repairs for the most part.
Yeah, some of the railings are down or even missing, I think, on one of those bridges. Are they talking about doing all 3 at the same time, or is it going to be sequential, one after the other?
The contract for construction will be for all 3 bridges. They'll probably phase them depending on what needs to be done. Obviously, the most work will be at Kensington Cabin, especially if we move the crosswalk. That will have the most significant work. So.
And have you spoken with the neighbors there along Kensington Parkway or even on Frederick Avenue about the potential of moving that crosswalk?
No, we just got the request within the last week from Parks. So we have a concept plan. We sent it over to the engineer Brutus. They're going to see if they can make this work, and then we'll notify the community. So.
Yeah, dialing in the neighbors, I think, would be a really good idea. Thanks.
Okay. B?
Sure. Mayor, council and I have discussed, there's a lot of infrastructure, I guess I'll make this simple. There's a lot of infrastructure projects going on in the town. Some of them are large scale with regards to mitigating floods. Some of them are related to as acquiring property for a future public works facility. A lot of different types of CIP projects that are kind of some that we have spoken about publicly, some that we have spoken about in closed session, and some that, we've just kind of kicked around and discussed internally. So we're thinking about holding like a forum to, let the public know some of the programs and projects that we're looking at in the near term, kind of get the residents in the community to understand why our CIP is budgeted the way it is, some of the projects we're looking at, why we're doing, a number of these projects. We've discussed and the community's aware of, the town possibly acquiring the M&T Bank location in the Kensington Business District. Why are we looking at that? Why would we do that? Where is the funding going to come from? Obviously, it was on the closed session agenda this evening, the ServPro property where the town's looking to acquire, for a future public works facility. Will give us an opportunity to discuss some of the stormwater management solutions that we're looking at on the north side of town on St. Paul between University and Farragut. As Councilmember Bartram knows, a couple weeks ago, there were some test pits done on Farragut for a future lateral of the storm drain from St. Paul. And then as we just discussed right now, finding some solutions to some stormwater issues on the south side of town, specifically along Washington Street within the sea line that goes out to Silver Creek and along Armory Avenue and the corner of Baltimore, where we have an issue specifically with one resident in the yard inlet. So, we're looking to schedule something maybe in Councilmember Lichter. I think we were talking about maybe February or March. It's kind of an informal forum, but it will allow the community a better understanding of what we're looking at, how we're budgeting for it, to ask questions and kind of get a better idea of, what we're planning to do to keep the town moving for the next 50, 60 years, at least on the infrastructure side. So
I think it would be really helpful, and I did talk to Matt a little bit about this, is to have kind of a written document that we could also pass out because, I think having the forum is a great idea, but, everybody's busy. There's gonna, not everybody's gonna be able to make a meeting. So I think if we have a written document that just, whether it's bullet points or each area that we're looking at, what's going on in the town, and has it as almost a standalone document that could be sent out just like we send out the journal. I think that's not a better way to communicate, but I think that will get more people to, it's a little bit more work for us, but I think it's really important to send that to every household so that if they can't make a forum, or, maybe it's incentive to come to a forum to get more information, but I think we should do that as well.
Tracy, your idea would be to do that leading up to a forum to help, like, hey, this gives you some of that information to really let you, big picture, you get an idea, but like come to the forum to get more detail.
I think that would be really, really helpful. I think that would push the forum probably more into March. But I think if we had a document that we sent out, that would get people it on their radar. Oh, I'm interested in this, or I want to get more information on that. So I just think it would be really helpful because I'm concerned that a forum, especially if you had it on a Saturday or on a school night, you're going to get less than 10 people.
No, I'm with you. And then budget season typically opens in March, right? So I think it's a good way, Matt, to your point of here are the projects, here's how we do the budget. As a matter of fact, we're just starting our budget. So to educate, right? Because if you're not familiar with how the CIP works, I wasn't when I first started. Like if you sit down and doing it at the same time that we're doing budget, it can be a helpful thing.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think Ann and I have talked about this a bit. We've bounced around the idea on this too, and I think beyond just informing the public about the budget, I think there's also a spirit of I don't want to call it participatory budgeting, but to give input to on what, we have limited money, right? And we have a lot of projects. So how to prioritize and getting input in that process, I think is part of at least the spirit of it as I understand it. But I'd love to see it move that way. The more, the more we can get the community engaged, I think the better.
Yeah, that's right, Nate. And I think Mayor Tracy's recommendation to have a summary written up and to share that ideally ahead of time kind of helps with that invitation to engage. I think what part of what's motivating this is that people may see the budget during the public hearing phase of the budget, but not understand sort of the decision making that has to go into what ultimately gets in there, and sort of the trade-offs that have to be made across all the different priorities, or to see how we're integrating all of the different priorities and getting ready for them. And so this is an opportunity to have that conversation a little more proactively, tie it to budget season, as Matt has and Connor have described.
I mean, you could think it really break it up to land acquisition, stormwater management, roads and, pedestrian walkways, that sort of thing, to make it a little bit more, the bridges, that sort of thing. So I don't think you have, nobody's going to have to take on a huge, because I'm hinting here that the council's going to need to have to step up to the plate a little bit to help staff out of describing, what these issues are. Matt can certainly give us a long laundry list of everything we're working on, but I think, Connor, you'd be good on the land acquisition, and then stormwater management. Someone else could look at that. And then the other issues that you think you want to bring up. So I think we're going to have to do a little homework, the next few weeks, and then get a date in March to set up the forum.
I'm thinking out loud about this because I certainly want to inform people about the issues that we're considering. And I don't know if adding a link on our website similar to the one where we have a list of redevelopment projects would be useful. But I'm a little concerned about having a list of the projects for this forum, because the forum is to acclimate people to the idea of we need a robust CIP, and not that we want to discuss the merits of each particular project tonight, the one that it most upsets the person that is going to come to this forum. And I mean, I guess I draw a little bit of an analogy to I can't remember what you called it, Nate, the urban art concept, where I think we want to support the concept in this, but we don't want to get lost in, I have a problem with this intersection or that intersection. And so I guess let's think about the purpose of this forum. Is it to just let people know how many stormwater parking issues we have that we're trying to address on their behalf? Or is it to potentially get into the weeds of multiple projects that night?
Well, I think part of the reason, maybe list is the wrong word, but it is, why do we need, because these are all things that have been brought up publicly anyway. Why do we need a public works building? Why are we getting these things? Why are we doing, that's going to cost money. And then why are we, why do we need parking? Why do we need, why do we need to fix the bridges? Or, I don't necessarily want to get into the weeds, but I think people who aren't going to show up to the forum need to have this information as well. So we can sit here and, argue how you want to put it together, but I think it's important that we get that information out to everybody, not just the 10 that show up for the meeting.
And we, when the staff's budget does highlight the CIP projects that we anticipate over the next few years, and it kind of explains why we're allocating certain funds within certain CIP programs, so it's written there, it's public, it's a document that people can ask questions on. I think this would allow us to just give a little more information. Obviously, as Councilmember Lichter and I were talking about last week, there's a lot of projects that we can't necessarily take to the public yet. They might be, a legal issue, or we're contemplating, maybe acquiring a property that we haven't communicated with yet. So we talk a lot about a lot of different topics, a lot of items, a lot of proposals and projects. And, a lot of them fall through. So we need a backup plan so we can pivot to another one that can, provide solutions and safety and value to the town and community. So
But we've certainly brought up enough, publicly that I think we can provide a little bit more information on. So, okay. All right, well, Anne, did you want to take the lead on setting dates and that sort of thing?
Yes, I can work with Matt on that and then engage the council
Okay,
in preparing.
okay. I know we have spring break is in March, so we need to make sure that, that's not, we're not planning that week. And then we're gonna have to, I understand from Nate that we're gonna have to deal with, do something on the March meeting, so we'll have to make sure we don't do that as well. Okay. Does anybody in the audience have a question regarding B? Okay, so let's move on. Matt, did you have anything else? You good?
I'll announce that the town is moving forward with acquiring ServPro property. So I'll just make the announcement now. In our February agenda, we're going to have it to schedule a public hearing potentially in March or as early as March, which will allow public comment. And it will be introduced through an ordinance, which would need to be approved by the council. We are looking to acquire the ServPro property for a future public works facility. So look forward to seeing that on the February and March agendas.
Matt, can you describe what the ServPro property is in case people don't know what it is?
Sure. So the ServPro property is a commercial property, which is the property just south of St. Paul Park, and it's south of the intersection of St. Paul and Oberon. ServPro is a lease agent of the existing property. We have been communicating with the property's owner, Ms. Warner, for many years about acquiring this property for a future public works facility, and we've come to at least a preliminary agreement to acquire the property, in which the town would most likely take possession of it beginning October 1st of this current year. And what we're looking to do is move our public works facility at some point, kind of in a midterm, 3 to 5 year period, in anticipation of the Summit Avenue Extended project, which would require the town to give up our existing public works facility on DuPont Avenue. DuPont Avenue extends to the west side of Connecticut, for the residents that aren't familiar, and our public works facilities at the end of DuPont Avenue.
Any questions regarding? Okay,
Public questions?
sure. Go ahead, Tom.
Is that property near the existing facility?
No, it is on the north side of town. It is north of the CSX rail line, but it is directly south of St. Paul Park, which is our largest park in the town, which is why it was identified as it's an ideal location for our public works, especially that we've kind of moved more towards landscaping and beautification of the town, and moved away from, we no longer do in-house trash collections. So our services changed slightly. So St. Paul Park is an ideal location for our facility.
So that's east of Connecticut. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, all right, well, let's move on to ordinance, resolutions, and regulations. Matt?
Council, before you this evening is resolution number R-01-2024, a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Kensington authorizing a contract agreement with AB Consultants to conduct a storm drain survey to identify the location of inlets and invert elevations within the C-line storm drain network, specific to the scope of work identified within Exhibit A. This is actually the second phase to a contract that the council approved back in November. We did the CCTV scan in 2 specific locations on the C line. There's no blockages. They came back clean. the one pipe, which is on line C10A, which it runs from Armory down to Calvert Street, is in good condition. The second location that we reviewed, which runs behind the Doherty and Buckingham property on Hadley Place, there are some concern issues there. We do know that we're going to need to replace that piping. What this survey is going to do is evaluate both of those locations to determine what recommendations we have for the replacements, at least of the Hadley piping, and will also get us some engineering to kind of figure out what we're dealing with on the rest of the C line down to the flat gate. This is the process to get to where we were discussing earlier this evening, where finding a solution to some flooding problems on the south side of town and potentially work with parks to find a resolution using Kensington Cabin Park. So this is just the next piece of the puzzle for that project.
Matt, has the owner or the developer who's building the house on the Doherty property, have they been informed of these results of this test?
Yeah, we've spoken with the developer multiple times. I don't want to get off topic. There's some issues with the development of that project due to the location of the property. They were not aware that it was in the county floodplain. So they're going to need to be doing some grading issues there. And they will be working with the adjacent property owner to find some resolutions. It does look like they are going to get a DPS permit. They're just going to have to, they're not going to be able to build what they thought they were going to build when they acquired the property.
Okay, and they're talking to the property owners on each side and in behind them?
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, and we'll need to notify everyone prior to the survey, because we'll need access to the properties, and then we'll provide a little more information to them what we're doing. So
Okay, because we don't want to cause more problems, not just for the owner of the house, but for the people around them as well.
yeah, there is easements to both locations, you know, so we are allowed to access the properties. They're on an old WSSC storm drain. I'm sorry, not storm drain, wastewater. It was converted over to storm drain easement. But most of the residents, you know, are pretty familiar with what we're trying to do and have been very cooperative to us. So
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
I should comment, AB Consultants is the consultant that did the CCTV scan. The last contract, Brutus and Associates, our engineer, hired them directly as a subcontractor. This one, the town is just hiring them directly to do the project. So if you've seen the name before, that's why they did the CCTV scans.
Matt, just a quick question, clarifying their hourly rates between exhibits A and B. So it looks like we received this letter just a couple of days ago from AB Consultants where they outlined their rates on page 2 of Exhibit A. For instance, the project manager at $200 an hour with a stipulation that, you know, rates are subject to a 5% escalation per year. My question, though, is in Exhibit B, the hourly rates that they are quoting for this project don't align to the letter. Why is that?
I can check with him and confirm that. I will double check.
I mean, grand scope, it's maybe a few hundred to a few thousand, you know, $1,000 or so, but the rate tables just don't match. And since we just got this 2 days ago, I don't think it should be subject to the 5% yet.
No, it won't be. I'll confirm with Steve. And I forgot to mention one thing on the last whereas clause within the resolution. Town Attorney Ferguson has asked me to remove the last 3 words and Exhibit B and change that to approved by the town attorney. So if you could, if you
So we
approve this,
needed
can you please,
amended
can you please,
version?
can you amend it to the last whereas clause to remove and Exhibit B and just change that language to approved by the town attorney? She has a contract on file with AB Consultants. And so the exhibit B is technically the contract, but it's not with this, so we would just defer to Sue Ellen.
Any other questions or comments, Matt? Anybody have any questions for Matt, council? Okay. Any questions from the audience? Okay, I need a motion.
Sure, I'll move. I move that we adopt resolution number R-01-2024 as amended to remove Exhibit B from the final whereas clause and replace with per the town attorney and subject to well, the dollar amount's fine.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, council, and I'll clarify with Steve the rate schedule.
Rates.
So,
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Last thing on the agenda is public appearances. If anyone has anything that they would like to bring up or comment on that's not already on the agenda. Joe?
Yes, thank you. I just wonder where matters stand with the potential for ending Friday trash pickup. I know this was discussed, what, 2 or 3 months ago at a council meeting, which I didn't attend, but I did hear the tape on this, and I just haven't heard anything since then that this is something that the council, at least it sounded like it was under active consideration. So, and replace it with
Composting service.
Yeah, and this was discussed 2 or 3 months ago, and I just wonder where things stand with this idea. I know it hasn't reached proposal stage, or the council, at least as far as I know, hasn't approved it yet. But just where do matters stand?
Mayor, I can answer this if you'd like.
Go ahead. We just talked about it this morning.
Yeah. So the town is this is the last year of our current contract year with Ecology Services, who our collection agent. We are looking at the possibility of adding composting. To what degree, we haven't had that conversation yet publicly or even internally. But I hope to have some the council members Lichter and Engel and I will be working together to bring some information to the public probably in the next couple of months, give you a better idea of what we're thinking. But beyond that, we really don't have any more information to provide other than we are looking at composting. You know, the potential to possibly remove a second trash collection might be discussed, but there will be a public and open forum to discuss that. And there's really no direction right now other than we're gathering information, getting preliminary numbers, and then we'll provide that information to the public and have an opportunity to comment.
So this would be a move that would be what, approved by the council, or are you looking for a community approval in this, or what? Because twice a week pickup is not necessarily a luxury. It's kind of a health it's a good idea health wise, and to have the composting replace that Friday pickup, I'm not sure there'd be a lot of support for that. And did I not hear this correctly when I listened to the tape of that meeting, that you're looking for maybe like a 40% buy-in on this approval from town residents before going ahead with that idea?
I believe
So
that
we've-
was on the composting aspect, not
Yeah,
of
so
anything about the loss of a second pickup.
we've discussed a lot of possibilities. Right now, we're waiting for some preliminary numbers. We're trying to figure out what's plausible. I mean, at least on the town staff side, I can't offer any more information right now, and I don't want to say anything else because we don't have any answers for you, Joe. Anything that the council decides to do would be a public and open option to discuss this. right now, staff's just putting together some information and some numbers for the council to consider, and then we'll proceed from there. So maybe really early summer. I think Councilmember Lichter and Councilmember Engel will be able to provide something through Sustainable Kensington that you can, we'll be able to provide some real answers to you, Joe. So
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to this idea, but I do think we need to have a lot of community buy-in on this. And when I listened to the tape, I think I heard that 40% threshold being discussed. And I would think you would want to go beyond the 40% threshold for buy-in.
Hey, Joe, that 40% that you heard on the tape was Mayor Tracy asking Nate and I think at the time, because we had led the initial push for the pilot program on composting, that the challenge was, could we get close to 40% of the households actively participating in the composting program? That would show a critical mass are using composting. I will say, as one data point, our family, our household of 6, I am actually pleasantly surprised with just how much we are able to divert into composting and how much it really does reduce from our garbage pickup. And that's what's kind of led to this discussion of, if that's one house and we expand it to 40%, is 40% kind of a place where we say, you know what, let's take it on as the whole town and find a way to do it as a town service that might promote people that are in the 60% who haven't yet done it to actively participate in it. So that's where the discussion of the 40% was.
Okay, I just wonder how many people are participating in the composting option now these days. Do you have any idea, Matt? 10% maybe?
So there's a program through Composting Crew where I believe around 50 residents are participating. Again, I want to caution this conversation. We are not prepared to have this conversation, at least the town staff is not. There's a lot of information we're gathering, and I don't want to say anything right now that is incorrect or there will be an opportunity. Once we have the information, we'll provide it to Councilmember Lichter and Engel, and there will be a public process to this. So
well, yeah, I understand.
I can take 10 seconds.
But you raised this 2 or 3 months ago at a public meeting, and I'm just following up on that discussion, which I was unable to attend. You said 50 households. Is that the number across town? 50 households participating now?
Nate, do you have the updated number from Compost Crew? It's higher than 50. It's less than 100 households. It ebbs and flows, right? Residents leave, residents enter, people start, people stop. We know that it's over 50 because there are price break points. So it's somewhere probably more accurately between 50 and 75. But I will also say we haven't made another push in probably close to a year. And so this was a discussion that several of us, just kicked off of, if we continue with a public campaign to get more participation in it, and we can try and understand how much we might be able to divert. It's hard because our vendor for both garbage and Compost Crew do multiple jurisdictions, part of the unincorporated part of the county, as well as other municipalities. So there's no way for us to get, like, pun intended, like clean tonnage numbers for just the town of Kensington. But we just want to start a discussion of how much is being diverted, and is it enough that it may be worth examining dropping a second pickup. So again, this is the beginning of just a discussion.
So 50 to 75 households would be what percentage of the town, of households in town? Roughly.
Around 10%.
10%. Okay.
So look, I'll just say, I mean, we're going to have many discussions about this. And we're all going to have different views of the value of composting and the second pickup. And I know, as somebody who's been in town for 25, 26 years now, I think when you have younger kids, you appreciate getting rid of the trash more frequently. And now that I'm older, I don't feel the need to feed the trash truck every pickup, but it's nice if I miss some Tuesday to have a Friday coming around. I just dumped my compost in my backyard. I don't know about you guys.
Okay, it was just an agenda item a couple of months ago, and I just wanted to know where we stand with this. And I appreciate the numbers that have been attached to the discussion. I think that's important, and I think further numbers would be useful as well. I think just letting people know that second trash pickup could be down the road jeopardized. I'm not sure that everybody would be in favor of that, but not having that second pickup also would take off the streets, a pretty big trash truck, and there's some advantage to that too, I could see. So,
Okay, thank you, Joe. Are there any other comments that people want to bring up?
Just a quick thank you in less than 30 seconds and a comment on the Summit Avenue extension. It's Tom Brawl. I don't know how to raise my hand in the chat, so excuse me. I want to promote the idea of reducing the cost burden on the county through a public-private partnership directly with the town of Kensington. A Montgomery County resident has a patent on a laser technology to change the lane size at any given moment to accept more traffic in any different direction. It's quite brilliant. It was proposed on a 270 project at one point. I think they need a pilot program. I think Summit Avenue extension could be great. It's not integrated with solar technologies yet. It can be integrated with solar technologies similar to some of the solar that's done on the inter-county connector. And I hope the county listens to you all, and we'll do anything we can to support you, not for our properties or anything in Kensington. It is the most important public investment in the down county, and it should be done. And we wish you well in leadership, environmentally, and technology.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Excuse me. I don't see any other hands. One thing I neglected to mention earlier, I just want to thank Matt and the crew for getting our new benches installed on Howard Avenue. They look terrific. We have another order coming, so once they come, the Public Works will put them together and get them out on the street. They look really good, Matt. Thank you. I believe we will be taking the old benches and giving opportunities for residents to get them for a small donation that will be given to a nonprofit, which is, we talked about Jubilee, but we haven't said on anything, but I think it'd be a good way of giving back to the community. And then of course, they are very heavy, so we would have Public Works drop it off to someone's front yard, where they're not going to be taking it around back up the hill, but they can drop it off at your front yard. So we'll let everybody know once we have all the benches collected. Okay. We need to talk about the February meeting. Darren, you said you'd be out of town. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we could make it a week later or a week earlier. Don't know how that works for everybody. Or go back to our Monday, the dreaded Monday.
So just a request from the staff not to move it up, because it's going to take us some time to put together the agenda packet for next month, especially if we do the introduction for an ordinance for the Serve Pro property. So
do you think the 21st, is everybody available on the 21st?
21st is a Thursday?
It's a Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry, February. Sorry, wrong one.
I'm assuming no one speaking means that's a
Should work.
21st.
Well, there is an
Okay.
RJC meeting.
RJC meeting, but we can move that.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
I should
think
be available. There's a
President's Day-
chance. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think would want to do it earlier because I think there's President's Day weekend.
Yeah, the 19th is President's Day.
So I can, and I don't know, when Matt said move it up, I don't know if he meant by a day or a week, but, and Nate, I don't know what your plans are that week, but I could either do it the day before the 14th, or I could do it the next week.
Yeah, there's a slight chance I might be traveling overseas for work that following week, but it's like 50-50 now. So I would say don't plan this one around me. The March conflict is more certain.
Well, I mean, we could do the 13th or the 15th,
No, not 15th.
not the 15th.
13th or 21st.
13th works. Is that okay, Matt, to move it up that one day?
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't want to move it up a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to be a quick turnaround for us.
Because
Yeah, the February agenda might be pretty
January does
busy.
have 31 days, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with February 13th. Work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so mark your calendars, February 13th. It will be by Zoom. We're definitely doing the winter months by Zoom. Okay. Do we want to go ahead and tackle the March issue, which is the 13th?
Yeah, I will be gone exactly at that time of our council meeting on a flight.
Okay.
So, but I'll be back on the 14th or 15th, so I could probably do any other time that week or the following week, like the Monday, Tuesday that week or the following week.
Well, we could keep it on Wednesday and do March 20th.
That works for me. It's
That's
another
works.
RJC. Oh, no,
It is
the other one.
RJC.
Yeah.
So because the spring break is the following week. So
Yeah, it starts on the 23rd.
yeah.
Just thinking ahead, if we're moving forward, and maybe I'm hearing that we don't need to worry about the 30-day periods, but I would hate to move the March meeting a week later to the 20th, and then find that we don't have enough time between the March and April meetings to do something that requires a 30-day period notice.
Okay. Did you say
So
the
if-
12th was okay?
No,
Yeah.
no, we'd be okay. So if we introduce an ordinance, if we introduce an ordinance on February 13th, we need 30 days from February 13th to hold the public hearing to acquire the property. So what was that? I think March 20th, Wednesday, March 20th, or right around there
we
would
could do
be.
the 12th. It sounded like the 12th, the day before, would work as well.
But I don't think that's 30 days, actually.
Oh,
Neither
I
would the
see,
13th.
from that time period. Okay,
So
sorry.
shifting it a week would actually help, is what Matt's saying, right? To account for those 30 days.
To go to the 20th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, just to belabor. We announce a public hearing in February. We hold the public hearing in March. And then we keep the record open until the next meeting, traditionally, right? So that's April. And is there any requirement that the period of time between the March 20th meeting and the April 10th normal town meeting be a certain number of days?
28 days for a public hearing, I believe.
But
Well,
So
that's
there-
the public hearing. This is for the record to be left open.
Yeah, so no, there's no requirement to keep the record open. You can adopt it after you hold the public hearing. Just
Yeah, we
historically,
usually set it for the Friday. It was the Friday before the public.
Yeah,
before
we've always historically kept open public hearings for an additional month to allow comment. Where our 30-day clause comes in is the announcement of the public hearing,
all right,
which is in
all
our
right.
code, and then we're required 28 days between the announcement and the actual hearing. So we're dealing with two requirements.
All right, but moving it to March 20th doesn't mess us up in April. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. I think we got everything. All I need is a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
a good
everyone.
evening.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night.